What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So I will be making schedule predictions for every single Power 5 team in college football for this upcoming season. I'll also do a subsequent conference standings video once I finish every team in a specific conference, just as a synopsis of all of my schedule predictions for that conference. And those synopsis videos will be coming later on in August as we get closer to the start of the college football season. Right now, I've got a lot of these individual ones to get through. So let's go ahead and get into the Oklahoma Sooners schedule predictions. So some quick thoughts on the Oklahoma program as a whole heading into 2022. And this is one of the most interesting programs in the country heading into next season, in my opinion. The way that Lincoln Riley left the program has been a hot topic all off season. And then there's the Brent Venables factor. With his past ties to Oklahoma and how good he's been in the past, he's undoubtedly one of the best defensive coordinators in recent years, and I think he'll be a very good head coach option for them as well, especially given time to build his roster. You give him a couple years, let him learn how to really be a head coach. I think he's going to be really good there in Oklahoma for the years to come. Then you factor in some important transfer additions. You got players like Dylan Gabriel coming in, and all of a sudden this OU team is super intriguing. I mean, they have a great staff. They have a pretty elite-level roster for the most part, but with so much change and unknown, and then you add in a first-time head coach as well, there's ample room for error. And with just about the entire Big 12 looking pretty dang good this season, it's not going to be an easy path for them, to say the least. So let's go ahead and look at some teams that just don't have much of a chance, to beat Oklahoma, barring some sort of catastrophe. So they aren't worth discussing too much. And those teams are UTEP and Kent State. Those are their first two games of the season. So the first game we are going to talk about is in Week 3 at Nebraska. Now this one is interesting. So Nebraska under Scott Frost has been underachieving for, basically since he's gotten there. They now have a new quarterback, getting rid of Adrian Martinez. It's an interesting program. They've got a lot of problems, though, and I think that Oklahoma certainly has a better roster than them at this point. I really honestly trust Oklahoma's coaching staff more at this point. I trust their quarterback position more at this point. I think Oklahoma gets a pretty big win on the road against Nebraska. It is not an easy game by any means. It's the game that Nebraska could certainly give them some trouble in, and I think they will give them some trouble in, but I still think Oklahoma gets a tough, hard-fought win there in Week 3. And then Week 4, that same hard-fought trend continues as they play Kansas State, and I think, again, they're better than Kansas State roster-wise. I like their coaching staff too, but I don't know. They've probably got the better quarterback here, as Adrian Martinez is playing for Kansas State, who we just discussed. But it's hard to say that they're just going to, walk the dog on Kansas State by any means, because Kansas State always gives them trouble. Kansas State is a very good team. They're very well coached. I think they're better than Nebraska even. But Oklahoma is at home here. They do have the better team, the better quarterback, so I'm going to side with them. It is definitely an interesting game, though. It is definitely one that you're going to want to keep an eye on, and Oklahoma fans need to be worried about. Next week, they go at TCU, and this one is really interesting. It is a really tough game. That is not an easy place to go win in. I do think Oklahoma is, again, a better team. I don't think that they're a dramatically better team, though, and on the road could be a tough ask for Brent Venables there. I think they get the win, but certainly a losable game, another one to keep an eye on, not one that you want to, overlook as you have Texas the next week. And so moving on to the next game, like I said, they have Texas the next week. It's in the Cotton Bowl. It is the Red River rivalry, goodness. And it is always an outstanding game. It is going to be a very close game. It is going to be very tough. Sarkisian has Texas kind of rolling a little bit on the offseason momentum side of things. Oklahoma has been better than Texas in recent years, but they have year one under Venables and all. I think Texas gets the win here. I think that is an upset win, though. I do think Oklahoma is the better team, and I definitely think Oklahoma shouldn't, you shouldn't go into this game as an Oklahoma fan and think that you don't have a good chance to win, because honestly, you probably should win this game. But I am going to side with Texas here. I think Texas is going to make just enough plays to get a big win here. And I think in year one, under your new head coach in Venables, there's going to be some games where your team just shows up and they don't play their A game. They have a B plus or a B game, maybe even some C games in there. And so I think this could be one of them. A moment might get a little too big almost. And so we'll see how it plays out. I'm going to side with the Texas in this one. The next week is Kansas at home, and as funny as I would find it if Kansas was competitive in this game, I don't think that they will be. Kansas is dramatically worse than Oklahoma. They've given Oklahoma a little bit of trouble before, but I don't think it's going to be very likely here. I think Oklahoma is better by a wide enough margin that Kansas isn't going to really have much of a shot here. I think they get a pretty big win in that one. Then they get a bye week heading into the at Iowa State game, and I think it's an important bye week because at Iowa State is a really tough place to play, and I think Iowa State is going to almost circle this game as a Super Bowl kind of thing to get a win against Oklahoma. I still think Oklahoma wins the game. They are on the road. They have the better quarterback, in my opinion. They have more talent on the roster as a whole. Iowa State loses Brock Purdy. They lose Breece Hall. Those losses are going to be huge. Tough road game. Definitely one you don't want to, take for granted by any means. But still, I think Oklahoma gets the win. The next week, another really tough game, and that is home against Baylor. I think Baylor is not quite as good of a roster as Oklahoma, but they're dang close. And, with Dave Aranda there too, they've got a lot of momentum going on the coaching staff side of things. I'm gonna go with Oklahoma in this game, and really the only reason is that they're at home. If they were at Baylor, I would take Baylor in this game. It's really close. It really is really close when the home field can swing the entire outcome of the game, in my opinion. Like I said, I'm gonna go with Oklahoma, but keep an eye out for Baylor. Do not take that game lightly by any means. And then there is at West Virginia, and I think this game is somewhat of a trap game because West Virginia is not as good as Oklahoma, but they are good enough to beat Oklahoma if things kind of go their way, and they're at home, and that's not an easy place to play. They have JT Daniels at quarterback, who is going to be a very good quarterback for them as well. You get this game after two tough games against Iowa State and Baylor, and you get it right before Oklahoma State, which I think is going to be a game that really determines a lot for the state of the entire conference. It's going to be a huge game. So I think Oklahoma may run into some look ahead here where they sort of don't take West Virginia too seriously. And not that they think they're going to just walk in and win, but they're worried about next week a little bit. They're kind of beat up from the last 2 weeks. And I think they slip up here. I think West Virginia gets an upset win over Oklahoma. And again, it's one of those things too. First-time head coach in his first year. A lot of roster turnover as well. I just don't think they're quite ready to gel together as a complete team and play their A-plus game every single week. I think this is another one where they may slip up. I'm going to go with West Virginia to pull off a big upset win over Oklahoma here. And then, like I was saying, they play Oklahoma State the following week. And this was one that I think could completely determine but the conference as a whole here. I think this game could really be the one that determines how things fall. I think Oklahoma State is, at this point, an equal roster to Oklahoma. You could make an argument either way, but I think they're pretty equal. I think Oklahoma State at this point has the better coaching staff, and I don't think that they're necessarily just going to always be better. But Gundy has been there for forever, and he has that thing rolling like a well-oiled machine. He knows the system. The other coaches know the system. The players know the system. They know what they are. Oklahoma at this point, again, year one head coach. I think that can be a lot of things. There's still a lot of questions about some of the new transfer additions, some of the players they lost, how are they going to replace them, things like that. I think Oklahoma State gets a big win here. Now, Oklahoma is at home. That could be a big advantage for them. I still think Oklahoma State gets a big win over Oklahoma. I think they sort of get over the hump, so to speak, and gets a solid win there late in the season. A game that I think could go either way, really could determine the entire shape of the Big 12. But one that, again, I think I'm going to go with Oklahoma State in. And then Oklahoma ends the year at Texas Tech. And this is one that could be interesting. Texas Tech is good enough to give Oklahoma some trouble. And being on the road is definitely tough. But Oklahoma is a better roster than them by a pretty noticeable margin. I think they've got a better quarterback and all. I'm going to say Oklahoma ends the year with a solid win here against Texas Tech. Not a game, again, that you want to just take for granted and take lightly, but also not one that I think Texas Tech is going to be able to get the win in. So I'm going to go with Oklahoma in that one. So that would make Oklahoma 9-3, which with this schedule and after the way Lincoln Riley left them and they're in year one under a first-time head coach in Brent Venables, that is a good season, and it could end up as good as 10-2 or 11-1, just depending on how quickly the team really gels together and comes together under their new coach. Now, they could also end up sort of in full rebuild mode, and they struggle a lot, and they finish around 7-5. They lose to teams like Baylor or Iowa State or Nebraska or even games like Kansas State. Those could be interesting games where they struggle. Even a game like a TCU as well could be one where they really struggle. Almost everybody they play is going to be bowl eligible this year, and in year one for a head coach, things are just never going to be easy, so I could definitely see a rebuild type of year. But with the talent on the roster, they are very capable of winning 10 or more games this year as well. So I'm going to go with them at 9-3. This is a year that things could turn violently one way or the other for Oklahoma. They could end up in that 7-win range. They could end up at a 10 or 11-win range. It's going to be incredibly interesting to watch. Anyway, though, that'll do it for this one. Let me know down below in the comment section where you guys agree with me and or disagree with me on the Oklahoma schedule in 2022. Tell me what record you think that they're going to have next year and who, if anybody, they're going to lose to. Also, if you've made it this far into the video, be sure to go ahead and leave a like because it does help out the channel tremendously. Lets me know you guys are enjoying this kind of content. And subscribe for more college football content in the future. Like I said, I'm going to be doing one of these for every single Power 5 team, so there's going to be a lot more coming out. I'm in the middle of the Big 12 right now. I have finished the SEC. I have finished the ACC. So check out those if you haven't, and be on the lookout for more stuff coming in the near future. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.